Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever in the world you are joining us today on this great launch of the Global Hug for Boys campaign. And I wanted to put together a movement that will close the emotional distance between a father and sons. And I did this research in 2023, and I find out that the teenage boys are the most unhugged population in the world. And as a matter of fact, Mr. Pelumi, please can you unmute? Sorry about that. So thank you. And when I saw that, I saw a huge gap that when boys approach the age of 12, a whole lot of them do not get that emotional connection anymore in terms of embrace from their father. And that began this journey into what can we do as a people, as a collective, as fathers, to bring father and son together on a particular movement. And that was what gave birth to the Global Hug for Boys campaign. The whole call to action is to promote the relationship, a healthy touch relationship between father and sons, and as well to ensure that every father pledge to give 20 seconds of hug to their sons every day, perhaps whether virtually or an embrace by. So this is all the Global Hub for Boys is aiming to achieve. And I welcome you to this global movement where we are restoring the love, the connection of father and son. So thank you so very much. You are all welcome. I will now invite Mr. First to follow the official order of event today. And when necessary, I will make more presentation. Thank you so very much and welcome.
Thank you, Ola. And let me welcome you all here. And those of you who are watching online later on the replay, thank you for also tuning in. Today is a rich opportunity to learn and to kind of separate from old style that our cultures have taught us to a style that is intensely honest, intensely responsible, and realize that fathers need to give the son some example, some way to know how is it that I, as a little boy, should become a man. One doesn't know that unless there is a sense of safety. So rather than me go on, we have several experts here that have been spending their life understanding how to deal with things. Now, I'm going to ask you all to please make sure you're muted. James Semerad, if you would please mute also.
August 1st.
Again, please mute.
All right.
Mike, you are now the host, and I'd love to have you be take the next 10 minutes and share your expertise, your family history. We know that you're involved in Real Dads, and I don't know that it would go on without you, but thank you so much. I've known you for a long time, and I treasure every moment. I really do. So, Mike Nisbett, please take the next 10 minutes and share.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm honored to be here Russ, and with you. And thank you, Ola, for putting together this forum. And I'm just delighted to just share for a few minutes. Yeah, I'm one of the coordinators of the Real Dads Network. It's an organization where we support men, not just fathers, but our goal is to change the narrative of how society see men, especially fathers. We want them to see that fathers are very much involved in their children's lives and the impact that we make on our children's lives when we're involved. So we support men and we build them up and we do different events with them. Yeah, so I'm going to get started. Yeah, this is a great topic because I think society has more or less labeled or kind of like set a narrative. I'm blessed to be a husband of my wife for 46 years. We've been married. We got married actually in Liberia, and we have two adult kids, um, and 44 and 36. We have three grandkids. And so I've been very much involved in family and working as a father and as a grandfather and as Uncle Mike, as many call me. So what touches my heart or concerns me is that, especially with our boys, we feel that when they get a certain age, that they do not need physical touch, right? That's a girly thing. That has been the narrative. But with research, we're finding that that's not the case. I have three short slides to share, and so I'm going to share my screen so that I stay on point. All right, I think I have about 10 minutes, so I'm going to just get right to the point. And here we go, share my screen. And yeah, so we want to talk about how hugs help rewrite boys' brains, right? So the first thing is it releases oxytocin, right? And research shows that this is a bonding hormone. It gives this, it releases oxytocin to the receiver as well as the one that's given, right? And this is a chemical that's so important because it lowers cholesterol, the stress hormone, and produces trust, calmness, and attachment. The results, it primes the brain for emotional safety, healthy connections. And this is a chemical that's going on inside the hormones. It's actually happening inside. Research shows that when you hug, when you give physical touch, it releases this hormone, which is so important for positive feelings. My wife and I, being that we were married so long, we had our ups and downs. We said during the pandemic that we would start to mentor couples. And we tell couples to hug for 30 seconds a day. Just embrace each other. And it's amazing the effect it has on the chemistry between the husband and wife. So that's just a sidebar that I just want to throw in there. So we hug our girls, we hug our babies, but when our boys get older, it's like not manly to hug. But research is showing that it's so important. Okay, it also helps regulate emotions and behavior. All right. So, physical attention, such as hugs and helping boys learn, it helps them to learn to regulate their emotions, right? So, not just with boys, with girls also. If someone is stressed, if you could get, if a person that's calm can embrace them, it helps to regulate their emotion. And we're teaching them how, so it's co-regulation, right? But by doing this, we can teach them how to self-soothe, how to relax, how to calm down. Old school, you yell, calm down. Why are you upset? No, no, no. No, that doesn't work. We found that by embracing, by holding each other, we can actually ease the emotions. So it helps to regulate emotions and behavior. The last point I want to bring out on this slide is that it builds self-esteem and trust, right? So a hug communicates unconditional love and acceptance. This fosters self-worth, security, and the ability to build trusting relationship with others. So it helps build self-esteem. All right, my next slide, I want to give some really quick practical tips for parents and caregivers. And I notice that I am the host and I need to admit someone. Oh, sorry. We got to work this out because it's causing me to, yeah. So here's some practical tips for parents and caregivers. Make hugs part of a routine. So we don't want to just hug our boys or hug our children under crisis. So it's recommended to give a hug during morning, morning greetings or after school or bedtime. So it's not like, oh, you're just trying to calm me down. You just don't want me to feel. No, it should be part of the family routine. In our family, at times we say, hey, let's just give a family hug, right? And we all just get together and give a hug. So it's not just because a crisis is going on. It should be part of a routine. So it's even more effective when a crisis occurs. And the other step is to be age sensitive and consensual, right? So as they get older, we might have to give them more space, or we might have to find out from them, can I give you a hug? Rather than just embracing them, right? That might seem like an attack. So I think it's very important that we're age sensitive and consensual so that it doesn't seem like we're bullying or we're just forcing a love, because then it has a counter effect. Use hugs during emotional moments, right? So we kind of like said that, someone's discouraged, has failed their exam. Can I give you a hug? And I think it's important that in order for our boys to more or less buy into this hug, they should see us hugging our friends, hugging our partners, that it should be part of our lives, right? So during times of discouragement, it's so good to just receive and to give a hug. All right. And the last point I want to make, which I think it's so important, is to pair hugs with words of affirmation. It is so reassuring when someone receives a hug and hear the words, I love you, I care about you, or you're so important. It just solidifies that hug. And in this world where our children are hearing so many negative things and there's just so much pain going on and distress going on, it's just so inviting to receive a hug and words of affirmation. I want to close out by actually sharing something that I feel as a pastor. I am right now pastoring in Chinatown, and I can't help but not give part of this parable. I'm sure many of you know it, is the parable of the prodigal son. And if you know the account, the son went to his father and asked for his inheritance, and the father gave it to him. And he went and wasted all of his inheritance, went with wild living, the scripture says, and found himself actually in the pig pen, found himself in a downward trend. And he was actually living with the pigs. And he came to himself and said, like, why am I here in this state? I'm going to arise and go to my father because the servants are living better than I am living. And he had this sense that, why don't I go back to my father? And do you know, the account is so beautiful because we find that the father was actually looking and waiting for him. And the scriptures tell us that when the father saw him, it's so beautiful, that while he was still a long way off, the father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. and he ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. I think that's just a wonderful way to just summarize this topic that I'm sharing on the power of a hug. And just as a hug physically shapes a boy's brain, love and compassion shapes his heart. In the parable of the prodigal son, the father's embrace is a picture of God's grace, acceptance, restoration, and unconditional love. When we hug our sons and our daughters, we mirror the Father's heart. A father's embrace not only brings comfort and speaks identity, it speaks those words of affirmation. You are loved, you are safe, you are mine. And just in closing, boys grow up in a world that often discourages emotional expression. They usually receive less nourishing trust as they grow. Hugs offers a powerful, safe way to rewrite their brains towards relational health, emotional resilience, and a deep sense of trust and belonging. Neuroscience shows hugs are not just emotional, but physically shapes the brain. So thank you for your indulgence. Thank you for your time. I just hope that we gleaned something that we can encourage each other to hug each other. It's powerful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mike. Bravo. There's something you said in the middle that I want to put back on the front burner, and that is, for so many of us, this act of showing a bonded concern and love and providing that safe space within a hug, that's not normal. And the goal is to normalize this, which is so powerfully important for our I was going to say for our sons, but I think it's equally important for the fathers.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, for them to learn compassion and softness and joy. So, Mike, Uncle Mike, Mr. Mike Nisbett, thank you so much, friend. It's just lovely to hear you. Next, we're going to be going on to a an expert in many things, but I have met him now once or twice. His name is Mr. Nixon Seko. He's from Nigeria. I'm sorry, from Kenya, Nairobi, Kenya. And if Ola, it might be that you will have to make him host if he needs to share a screen. So, Mr. Seko, the time is yours. I would love to hear about this. I have 3 African sons that I've adopted, and the whole concept of Ubuntu, or as they say in Rwanda, Ubuntu, but it's all the same. So, Nixon, please go.
Thank you very much, Russ, and also thank you very much, Mike. Ubuntu, as has been said, is an African term from South Africa. Just means that I am because we are. But I always love giving stories. I never grew up with my dad. My dad died when I was a very young man. And my dad, my grandfather, my father's father, my father actually never saw his father, because my grandfather died when my grandmother was pregnant. So I grew up with a father who wanted to provided for his children, but he just knew in the way he knew best. Yeah. But when I became a father, I found myself always hugging my daughters, or I found myself, just loving to be hugged. And for a long time I wondered why. But until I had a son, and I just learned how important a hug is to a son. See, Ubuntu principles are tools that can be mute, please. Ubuntu has 3 key principles. One is interdependence, where parents and caregivers that everyone's well.
Excuse me, Mr. Secco. Excuse me. Could everybody please mute? Richie, Emmanuel, would you please mute? Thank you. Richie, same for now. Go. I'm sorry, Mr. Secco, go ahead.
So the key principles of Ubuntu are interdependence, where parents and caregivers raise children with the belief that everyone's well-being is tied to the other. That's number one. Number two is shared responsibilities, is where elders, uncles, aunts, neighbors, even older siblings actively participate in parenting. And number three, and very important, is respect for elders. Elders guide and discipline with authority that is widely respected. And finally, moral character over individual success, where emphasis is on communal values. For example, in Africa, we have a lot of generosity, you know, we believe in honesty, we believe in humility. And it's not just, you know, about academic and financial achievements. I remember when I was growing up, if I ever did a mistake, one is my neighbors disciplined me. Then when my mother came home, because mom always came home before dad, they disciplined me. Then when dad came home, he disciplined me too. At a certain point, I was very resentful about it. But as I grew up, I discovered the importance of communal discipline. Because one, when there is communal discipline leads to cohesiveness, togetherness. Yeah? And we are in a world today where the issue of communal is actually dying. Because Ras, I would tell you that Africa is leading in terms of single mothers. And there's something that we have to understand is that a mother can never be a father to a boy. I repeat that again. A mother can never be a father to a boy. And a father can never be a mother to a girl. So the whole issue of hugging, how have I used hugging to enhance the relationship with my son? One is I'm talking, as I'm here today, I'm talking on behalf of a group that really feels at times left out, and really feels at times that when it comes to family issues or family values, they sort of think that they are not part of it. No, we are. I am divorced recently, and I have made it very intentional to be part and parcel of my son's life. I talk to my son every day. I hug him every day. I am involved in his schoolwork every day. We go for activities together nearly every weekend. So the young man understands that he is loved, he is appreciated. And when we sit just to do things together, you know, at times we sit and we cook together. Yeah, at times, you know, I have a bike that I can carry him, but it's also strong enough that at times he can carry me. He's confident enough to tell me that I made a mistake in school, and this is what happened, and I'm sorry about it. And after I have also told him not to repeat that again, I go and hug him, and he feels the love of a parent. I tell him that I love him every day. Every day. So he's growing up a very confident person. But what have I discovered about single parents or men who are divorced? There are certain traits I've discovered that are very discouraging in terms of how we raise up our children. Number one is shouting at children, because at times you can be so frustrated that the only way to release your frustration is to shout at your child. But at the end of the day, you're really not helping them. You're actually going to make them become more distant to you. Number two is calling them names. You're a fool, you know. You're useless. You will lead to nothing. No. I call my son a king. I tell him, Jonathan, you're going to break the 100 meters world record in the next 5 years. And the guy believes it. Because we go for, when he's a runner. When he goes for training, I'm always there with him. We compete, and I let him win. And there are times I also win, so that he makes him strong. And it has reached a point for him where his confidence is so high, and the teachers believe in him so much that he is not racing against boys his age. He's now racing against boys who are 12 and above. Number 3 is also hitting or slapping your son in front of other children. That's absolutely wrong. It reduces their self-esteem, it reduces their morale, it reduces their confidence. Number 2 is just also not appreciating the small things that they do. There are times my son tells me, hey, Dad, I'm going to wash your car. I mean, this guy is 9 years of age, Russ and Mike. He's 9 years of age. And he takes his time to get a bucket, get a cloth. The best he can clean are the tires. But when he does that, I congratulate him. I tell him, thank you very much, Jonathan. I hug him. And at times there's also a reward for that. So I encourage him to be creative and to take initiative. And number 5, and very importantly, is we have to learn to listen to our children. If you all remember very well, recently Kenya has experienced a lot of upheaval, from young people. And the president 2 days ago put the blame squarely on parenting, and he said that this is a problem that should be first solved at home. And to an extent, I agreed with him, because one, as parents, we have to listen to our children. We are not always correct. And number 2, and two, the way we were brought up is not necessarily the way we should bring up our children. And we should learn, because in Africa, Mike and Russ, we have two homes. We have where we live in the city, and we have the village. So again, it's very intentional to take your son back to the village, so he understands the life in the village, and he understands how to live and how to adapt to that life. So for men who are divorced, please never be ashamed of your scars. Learn to carry your scars, because your scars are a badge of honor. And let's use those scars to educate and to pass over knowledge to the young, to young people, to young boys, so that as they grow up, they know that making a mistake is okay, but staying in that mistake is wrong. Letting them learn, to, one, forgive themselves. Number 2, forgive those who have wronged them. And number 3, to know that they are champions, that there is nothing that they cannot do, that impossible is nothing, and we will end up raising kings and princes. So in conclusion, I'd want to leave you with 2 quotes. These are two of my favorite quotes. Nelson Mandela said, "It looks impossible until it is done." Everyone is complaining now about how, as where the world is going and what you're experiencing. But I believe that it's initiatives like what Ola and Russ and Mike we are doing, and including myself, that will help us, get our generation to the next level. And my second quote is by the late Colin Powell, who was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs in the United States. He said, "Others may use my race against me, but I will never use my race against myself. My race has been a source of pride, strength, and inspiration, and so has my being an American. I started out believing in an America where everyone given equal opportunity can succeed through faith and hard work. I continue to believe in that America." And it is based on that statement that Colin Powell founded an organization called America's Promise. I would request each and every one of us, when we have time, go and look at that website. And one of the things they say is to create safe spaces for young children to grow up. And there's also a bias, especially on the boy child. With that, gentlemen, allow me to stop and allow me to thank you very much, Mike, for the example you used of the prodigal son. And 2 weeks ago, my son was sick, and he needed an ultravenous needle to be placed under his skin so that they would be able to put in medicine. He was so afraid, he was crying so much until I went and hugged him. I hugged him. Jonathan, don't worry, Daddy is here. And that made a very big difference. He allowed the doctor to insert the ultravenous, and they were able to get the medicine in his body, and now he's okay. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.
Mr. Seiko, thank you so very much. You bring up so many wonderful points. Specifically, shared time is so important. And I think in our society, in the city, as opposed to the village, we don't make time for ourselves or for our kids or for the unity that's necessary and is possible in the small town. Yeah, we may not have the same style of village here in the United States or maybe in Europe, but we have small towns. And when we have family reunions, it's a small town. So there needs to be this Ubuntu that you speak of. And it's critically important that all people, particularly parents, have the ability to say, you know, I'm a parent. I didn't get this, but I realize that this can stop with me. I can now learn to share. I can learn to hug. I can do different than was done to me. That's an important point that you were bringing up. We all have emotional scars. Thank you for talking about that. But it's our role as adults to take responsibility and see to it that our children don't have the same scars, that we just don't pass it on. So,
absolutely,
Mr. Seiko, thank you so much. I look forward to being in Africa later this year. Hopefully, Kenya and I'll open, and we'll break bread together. That will be wonderful.
Thank you, and look forward to seeing you in Africa. Bye.
Now, Ola, if you would please make me host now, I'd like to share something with everyone that we are so proud of. I was so pleased with Ola for his ability to connect with people. He does this all the time. He's made a life of it. But one of the people who he connected with and could not be here today, but wanted to share his input, was G. Lawrence DeMarco. You may not know the name, but I'm sure you know the organization. He's the executive manager of the International Council for Men and Boys. This is a man with great responsibilities. And he thought so much of what it is Ola is trying to do and that the rest of us are here to support, that he wanted to send his greetings. So what I will do now is bring that up on my screen, and you're going to see the backstage here because I'm not as smooth as some others. Okay. Share my desktop. Yes. What? Allow. Yes. There we go. I don't know my password. Oh gosh. Oh, here, this. My fingerprint will do. Thank you. Okay, so here we go. Let me see if I can share now. Stick with me. Here we go. Here comes Mr. DeMarco. Can you all see that? Can anybody see this?
Yeah. Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Larry DeMarco, Ola, thank you for asking me to present today, and thank you for everything you do with B-Man. When I was in school, I played men's sports, American football, rugby, and baseball. I only had 2 brothers, no sisters, and I went to an all-boys school. I was raised in a deeply traditional European, Italian, paternalistic household where I knew exactly what being a man meant in the old school sense. My father never said I loved you or hugged me, but I never doubted his love. He showed me love by providing, protecting, and showing up every day. I was raised to be a gentleman. Don't hit, open doors for others, pay for her dinner. My parents embodied old-fashioned gender roles. He worked, she stayed at home, and I absorbed those expectations like gospel. Today, I'm the executive manager for the International Council for Men and Boys. Our mission is to raise awareness about 12 key areas of male inequality and promote solutions to help men and boys thrive in today's changing world. But this work is also personal, and I want to share a piece of my story, one that shows how traditional masculinity both shaped me and nearly broke me, and how rewriting its rules helped me find joy, connection, and purpose. By the time I reached high school, I recognized I didn't fully fit the traditional mold. I was emotional and still am. I cry. I feel deeply. I over communicate. I'm expressive, passionate, empathetic, and open. But for a long time, those qualities felt like weaknesses. I didn't see them modeled in the men that I admired growing up. I became a personal injury litigation attorney, a respectable job with a good paycheck. I was good at it, but the stress drained me. I came home every night miserable and irritable. I've always been more driven by understanding people, what makes them tick, why they're struggling, what they're struggling with, and how to help them find solutions. Working with numbers or chasing financial gain just didn't inspire me the same way. My wife, smart, intuitive, and wildly capable, saw this in me and encouraged me to take action. She had left teaching, frustrated with the politics of her school district and her system, and was slowly building a consulting firm that now coaches communication and leadership to business executives. One day she said what I was afraid to say out loud: if you stay in your job, it's going to destroy your happiness and ours. So I left litigation, the stressful part of law, but I stayed with the social work part and the counselor part of law, serving nonprofits. It doesn't make me rich, but it makes me whole. I now have 2 part-time jobs that I love. I smile more. I laugh more. I look forward to Mondays and waking up in the morning of a work day. Our marriage is stronger, and I'm finally modeling for my son the kind of man I want him to become. My mother, still very traditional, once asked me, "Doesn't it bother you that your wife makes much more than you?" And I'll admit, it stung a little at first. But then I realized what hurt wasn't the fact that she earned more. It was the echo of an old script that said that my value was defined by how much I earned, the role I played, and how much control I maintained. But that's not the script I want my son to inherit. In our family, we flipped the roles. My wife My wife works long hours. I do the laundry, clean the dishes, and care for our son most nights and weekends. I'm an affectionate, communicative husband and father. I kiss my son on the head. I tell him I love him, and I listen when he needs to talk. And every time I do, I'm filled with hope because I know I'm helping my son grow up seeing that love, presence, and emotional connection are part of what it means to be a strong man. It's not just strengthening our relationship, it's reshaping what's possible for the next generation. We're at crossroads, a moment where the old model of manhood no longer fits the world we're raising our sons to lead. My grandfather's generation believed affection made you weak. My father loved deeply, but didn't know how to say it. I've chosen a different path, not because the old way was all wrong, but because it was incomplete. It's time to redefine what it means to be a man, not by throwing out strength, discipline, or resilience, but by adding empathy, affection, and adaptability. A man who leads with love, communicates with clarity, and shows up fully at work, at home, and in his heart. That's the kind of man I'm trying to be. That's the kind of father I want to model. And that's the kind of legacy we can all choose to build for our sons, our daughters, and ourselves. Because in the end, masculinity shouldn't be a cage. It should be a bridge to connect to purpose and to each other. I'm Larry DeMarco, Executive Manager of the International Council for Men and Boys. You can find us on menandboys.net. Sign up, join the wave, leave your email address, get our newsletter, and don't forget, hug your son twice a day. Thanks, Ola. Thanks, B-Man. Keep up the great work.
Well, he's a remarkable man. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. And Ola, he certainly admires you and the work that you have put out into the world. So thank you. Thank you very much, Ola. You know, the one thing that struck me about well, so many things did, but it's all about making choices. And sometimes those choices are uncomfortable because it's not what we may have learned in the past. And our parents, bless them, they did what they could in most cases. But we are at a crossroads. We are at a time when the role of masculinity that we were handed doesn't necessarily work in today's changing and very much now interconnected world. Just look at us. This would never happen. In my lifetime, it could never be conceived, but here we are. So we all have to make some changes and some new choices, and all of it in the interest of future generations, particularly our own families, and of today's discussion, our sons. So, Ola, I know you're there pulling the levers. Take the hosting away from me now, and we're we're going to go on to be with, let's just see here. Let me just close out a couple of things on my screen. Yes, our next guest is it Kwasi? Is it Kwasi Kujo?
Yeah, Kwasi Kojo.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, shall I call you Kwasi or Mr. Kujo?
No, Kwasi is fine.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Tell us, if you would, where you're from, what expertise is it that you think Ola is tapping in bringing you here with us, and then take the time you need to share with us what you have prepared. Go
Sure,
ahead.
no problem. So first, I must say thank you for having me. Thanks, Ola, for putting this together. And welcome to everyone who's viewing. I am from Trinidad and Tobago. That's an island in the Caribbean. And I'm a development specialist. I'm really based in Trinidad, but I've worked within the Eastern and Southern Caribbean And I've worked around a number of social issues, but I always like to say that my passion has been working with men and boys. So I've worked with men, incarcerated fathers, developing program, actually piloted the first program in Trinidad where we, helped build the parenting skills of incarcerated men. So it'll help them better co-parent whilst behind bars. I've worked with migrant men. Trinidad and Tobago would have experienced an influx of Venezuelan migrants over the past couple of years. So I've worked with migrant men, helping them and helping communities adjust to the influx and pushing back against xenophobia. I've worked also with deaf men around issues of gender-based violence because many of the communities I'm speaking about, really marginalized and are vulnerable and do not necessarily always get the resources and the support that they deserve. I've worked with youth involved in justice, youth and probation. So I've worked, as I said, my passion is really working with men and boys. And I specialize in areas of youth development, community resilience, citizen security. And I'm just glad to be here to have, and this isn't a lecture, but a discussion with you all around, diaspora dads and how do we really reimagine and reapproach helping men who may be migrants and are adjusting not only to the new physical spaces, but to new cultural norms. Understand that hugging, although it may be an emotional or unfamiliar emotional act to navigate, it's not impossible. And helping them to redefine what masculinity looks like, and most importantly, appreciate and mirror that behavior so that will be passed on to generations to come. So if you can just allow me to have sharing privileges, I just have a really short, yeah, short PowerPoint here I want to go through. I know whilst I wait, one of the last presenters spoke about, the village. And just recently, I wrote a piece around, how do we re-establish the village and understanding that, and he said it, it's communal, rebuilding that social cohesion to support, parents in a society that is always ever changing. Okay, could you just confirm, is it that you all are seeing the slideshow view
We
on your
see
end?
it. Thank you. Yes.
Slideshow view?
Yes.
Okay, great. So as I mentioned, this is going to be more or less discussion with light reflection on my experience working with, what I like to call diaspora dads or men navigating unfamiliar lands and also unfamiliar emotions at times. So what do we bring and what we must learn? And I will say many times, and I also, I really look at it from the position of be it a physical transition, moving across borders, or sometimes even an emotional transition, moving from within different spaces. What are the norms that men carry them? And in many instances, men carry, those deeply rooted cultural blueprints of, stoicism and emotional reserve, where hugging may be something that's frowned upon indirectly or not necessarily socially encouraged. But the thing is, once you really understand that a hug isn't necessarily a show of weakness, but it is a show of strength that we pass on to our sons, it becomes a bit more palatable. And children raised in new environments, learning different emotional languages, one where hugs are expected and not earned, there's sometimes also kind of clash because there's tension. Because if you come from a background where, showing that visible or tangible affection is something that isn't the norm, and you end up in a new culture where, hugging and expressing the different love languages quite openly is acceptable, it creates not just a tension between, I want to say, father and child, but even within the man himself, because he's caught in that internal struggle, that dissonance, where he's at an emotional crossroads, either to adapt or disconnect. And the adaptation means really pushing beyond his, as I said, that deeply rooted cultural blueprint to one in which where he now gives him space to really express his emotions, be it hug his son, be it, say verbally, I love you, son. Because what we see, especially with men or diaspora dads or migrant fathers, is that, it's not as easy. And there are a number of barriers to that as well, apart from adjusting to new systems, apart from facing, as I say, xenophobia or discrimination at times, and just having what some fathers may call us so much things to think about. It's easy to neglect or to put as, low on your priority list, adjusting your emotional delivery package or style to really meet the needs of your son and your daughters as well. So what does that look like in terms of, lessons from the field? And I have a number of, experiences I could have reviewed, but I just decided to go to this one, which is having delivered a program called Alimentos y Familia for Venezuelan fathers in Trinidad and Tobago, because I'm going to just create the scenario. A lot of men would have been leaving their home country, their place of birth, to really provide for their families, to find, work, to have a stable life. And some of them brought their families with them, but they were faced with really meeting immediate needs. And this program would have focused primarily on establishing food security within, the Venezuelan communities spread across Trinidad and Tobago. But we would have taken the opportunity to integrate within it that, that social emotional component for the fathers. And how we did it is, we created safe spaces where, migrant men were able to really meet up on an afternoon, and we would have conversations around, what does, sharing emotions look like within your new culture? What are some things you wish Trinidadian nationals knew about, Venezuelan men? And within this safe space, fathers were able to speak candidly about, their struggles to connect with their children. And many admitted that they had never even hugged their sons really and truly. And when we dug deeper in the discussion, we realized two reasons were for the, the result of that. One, coming into a new space and really, being uncertain about, status, immigration status, trying to really meet their family's immediate needs by finding a job and providing for them. But also, many of them said it wasn't something that they were culturally accustomed to. They would have said that hugging their sons usually occurred around particular events. So, for example, if they were watching a football game and their team scored, they just embrace the son in a moment of joy. But intentionally, let's say, meeting up with their sons on an afternoon, sons coming from school and just hugging their son and showing that love was not the norm. And there we saw that that hug wasn't as out of a lack of love for their sons, but because of lack of modeling. So it was important that we build these safe spaces that allow the men to reflect, to just need to admit somebody I'm saying here, recalibrate and reconnect. And one of my success stories, to be honest with you, because I in working with men and boys, I really look for those silent moments of, self-realization or understanding. And even when men challenge themselves against certain norms, one of the fathers actually would have shared that he wouldn't have, hugged the son before the session. So at the end of that session, and when he came back to the follow-up the following day, Um, he said, like, I hugged my son, and you know, guys kind of paused, and you would have sworn it was similar to a guy saying, I now defused a bomb, because you could have heard a pin drop. People kind of stopped in silence, and just that silence showed that the act of hugging, um, although it was something that many didn't model, they understood the importance and they were really eager. It resonated. He hugging his son resonated with the men, and participants were eager to really hear how it is, he felt. And we congratulated him because it marked a real shift within that man, that, the embrace was more than just an affection. It was a sort of breakthrough, in terms of pushing beyond that unfamiliar territory, physically and emotionally. It's like that man was saying before, this is something I'm not too sure about, I'm not too comfortable with, because I realized it was never modeled to me. But now I'm going to do it. And he took that step. And that hug became a turning point within the group, because it was almost like a personal protest against this sort of inherited silence. Are my slides changing? I just want to confirm.
Yeah, they're doing fine. Thank you.
Thank you. So, how do we embrace the shift in terms of redefining fatherhood in the diaspora? The reality is that migration, as much as it may bring challenges, it really offers a chance for men to rewrite the script of masculinity, of affection. And programs or initiatives that, seek to support that shift in emotional identity need to be done in a way where it's safe and supportive. Because many diaspora dads really quietly doing the work of redefining fatherhood in distant lands where, affection isn't optional sometimes. And I'm saying it isn't optional because sometimes they get into a space and culturally it's the norm to be very openly affectionate with sons, and even with other men. Our responsibility is to create that programming and that public messaging that makes the transition possible. So hugs doesn't really become only a personal act, but more or less a cultural statement of belonging, of growth, of familial love. And I just want to leave you all with this, which is, one hug could break a cycle and one hug could build futures. And I think that is what would have happened with, the Alimentos y Familia project. I would have seen it happen with, our work with incarcerated men. And I've seen it work, across the Eastern and Southern Caribbean with organizations and groups that work with men and boys and, interface with migrant men who are not native to that particular culture and that space. So we need to really look at hugs not only, as I said, just a love language, a physical touch, but understand that it has the potential to break down generation walls, to push back against these culturally, deep-rooted norms that prevent or prohibit men from showing physical affection, and also to lay a path going forward that will be beneficial not only to the men themselves, but to their families. So at this point, I would like to stop and say thank you and hand it over to the host.
Kwasi, thank you. Your insight is so valuable because you're, as we say, in the trenches. You're right there. You're doing it with the real people that are in serious need because they have gone to a completely new land, new culture, and everything. Uh, I think most of us could also agree that just going from the village to the city, it might be the same quote unquote culture, but it's vastly different. So even if you haven't left your country, it's possible to feel like you're part of a diaspora just because of the unfamiliarity. And What I said back at home, will that work here? What I did back there, will that be accepted here? So, Kwasi, thank you so much. You mentioned some vital information, and I look forward to having the replay uh, link for yours and everyone else's also. Just a quick update. Uh, our next and final speaker is going to be Richie Bansraj, also from Trinidad, I believe. But I want to let you know that after that, we're taking a time where all all four of our speakers are going to be on simultaneously, and we're going to share some discussion and allow us to cross culturally, cross internationally, intercontinentally communicate about this need, which is, I think, obviously by now, it's a common human problem that most of us have, particularly when we have not grown up in a culture which is open, friendly, allowing, and a display of actual connection is maybe unusual where we are from. It is a choice, and so making choices and realizing that in one way or another, just leaving your home and going to school or getting married, you have just become a diaspora person. There is no question about it. So thank you, Kwasi. I really do appreciate that. Richie Bansraj. Now, if you could please unmute yourself and please tell us who you are. I think you're in Trinidad. Is that true?
Correct, correct. Good, well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. Everybody can hear me, right? Thumbs up.
Absolutely. Great.
Great. All right. So it's a pleasure to be here. So thank you, Ola. Thank you to the rest of the team. Thank you for having me here to engage in this discussion. So I'm very excited to be part of this entire thing, because just like Mr. Kujo, Kwasi Kujo, I know him as well too. It's Trinidad and Tobago we are both from. So we do a lot of this type of work with men and boys. So in a nutshell, I would just talk about the work that I would have done in my capacities. So first things first, I work with Dr. Jerome T. Luxing very closely. So I am actually was recently appointed the global ambassador for World Day of the Boy Child. So it is very important, and I have been going to secondary schools. I've been to boys' schools, all boys' schools. I've been to all girls' schools, and I've been to co-ed schools, all in one day, which is the World Day of the Boy Child, which is on the 16th of May, right? All in one day to show the importance that our boys need focus as well. But you really can't say all the time, we are boys and we are men. We have problems too. If we usually say that all the time, the other gender tends to, want to, collide with us. So in a nutshell, that is what I do. I'm the global ambassador for World Day Boy Child. I'm also a youth development advocate. I'm a gender development advocate as well, because I work on gender on both sides, for men's rights, men's issues, as well as women and girls, the vulnerable women and girls that we have in society. And youth development is really at my heart, where I work with these young persons, right? To develop them according to the national youth policy, because Trinidad and Tobago does have a national youth policy as well. I've been in government for the past 11 years now. I have my good and my bad to say about government, but they are slowly progressing into where it is that we really want them to be in Trinidad and Tobago with regards to men and boys issues and youth development issues as well. So the other thing is, right now I am currently working with in the prisons. I'm actually going into the male and female prisons in Trinidad and Tobago. I have been to almost all of them, except actually I've been into Carrera, but online, right? So I've been into most of the prisons trying to talk to these men and boys about rehabilitation and also habilitation, because some of them don't even know how to even operate in a society in the first place. So that's why we have such a high rate of recidivism, where they go back into the system and they're coming out, they go back in, they come out, they keep going in and out like that. So my thing is Trinidad and Tobago has a culture where we just throw men in the jail and fling away the key. We cannot do that all the time. We need to have systems in place for them to be rehabilitated and come back out into society and be mentors to our young men. We want them to be mentors to our young men in society because they are the ones who know what is wrong. They did what is wrong. They made the mistakes, and now it's up to them to guide these young men into the right path. Right. So that is generally what I do. Oh, my background in terms of academics, I studied sociology at my bachelor's and sociology at my master's level. So I study people and culture. That's my thing. I love studying peoples and cultures and working with them. Studying them is one thing, but working with them is a whole other ball game. When you're on the ground and you're experiencing people who are living in pure poverty and how vulnerable boys, and I'm touching back on this, the entire topic, how vulnerable all boys are in Trinidad and Tobago, as well as the region, as well as the world, our boys are. If this was a discussion about women and, well, if this is a hug for girls, the whole thing would have been different. You might have like 100 people here on the chat. It would have been more, people pay more attention to the girls' issues, when in reality, we need to pay more attention to the boys' issues as well. Like the Hugs for Boys campaign is very, very important, very good, because if I go out there and I ask a father, a friend of mine, how important it is to really hug your when last you hug your child? He gonna watch me. When last you hug your son, he gonna watch me like, nah, that not for me. That for my wife to do. So we need to understand the dynamics there. So I want to run through I have some talking points here in terms of the importance of the vulnerable, to highlight the vulnerabilities of boys and also the power, the importance of hugging them. A simple thing like a hug, right? So boys, we know, understand this. Everybody in this space, and a lot of the discussion before me has already reiterated on these. Everything has been stacking. We have been seeing the same thing, all of us saying the same thing, because we in this chat, we know what is important for our boys, right? So boys have emotional needs too. Boys are often taught to hide them. From an early age, boys are conditioned to suppress the emotion with phrases like, yeah, the man will be a big man. In Trinidad, they call it be a big man, stop crying, boys don't cry, all them kind of things, right? So this results in boys growing up emotionally repressed, struggling to express their hurt, fear, sadness, and even their happiness. Even their happiness. So hugs and affection offer boys this is like a gateway. So it offers boys this emotional permission to feel without shame. So a lack of affection can lead to long-term emotional and behavioral challenges. So research generally show that boys who grow up without affection, any type of affection from either of the parents, are most likely to develop aggressive behavior, low self-esteem. They tend to be low self-esteem and lonely, substance abuse issues, difficulty forming healthy relationships. So things like a simple hug from a parent. You see, I want to say a parent. It doesn't have to be a man alone. It could be from a man, the woman. It could also be from a teacher. It could also be from a mentor. Or it could also be from a caregiver. Or even a protective service person, somebody who they look up to in society. It can act as a protective buffer against the negative outcomes that I would have highlighted there. And let me know how much time I have left. I don't want to I don't want to keep talking, and so let's go on to the other point. Hugs promote emotional safety and positive identity formation. So a hug tells a boy, you are loved, you are valued, and you are accepted. This builds self-worth. So self-worth of the child themselves. So helping him to understand that vulnerability is not a weakness. Is not a weakness to show that your vulnerability and to show emotions as a young man. It is a strength. When boys feel safe to express their emotions, they are more likely to engage in healthy conflict resolution, show empathy, they have better relationships, even better relationships with women and girls when they grow up and they start to get into complex relationships with the other genders. So now we go into physical affection actually does rewire the brain for trust and connection. We are humans. We are social beings. We are humans. We are social beings. We like to interact with each other. The hugs actually release oxytocin. So it is called the bonding hormone, which helps calm anxiety and it builds trust. So for boys who may be experiencing trauma, neglect, rejection, a consistent show of affection could rewire the emotional pattern. So you're looking at the chemical releases in the brain itself and how it is a psychological kind of thing as well, right? So boys who are shown love become men who can show love or can give love, right? So boys who are shown love as a child, they often know how to show their love and affection to others. So that's why the importance of when we hug our boys, we teach them how to connect with others without violence, dominance, or fear, which is usually three things that are associated with being a man. You had to be a man, you had to be violent, you had to be dominant, you had to administer fear to other people, right? So boys nurtured with love are more likely to become three things: supportive partners, involved fathers and mentors, and compassionate leaders. So hugs today create a generation of intelligent men for tomorrow. A cultural shift, right? So redefining masculinity through affection itself. So true masculinity must make space for kindness, empathy. Empathy is meaning you feel that you're putting yourself in someone else's shoes, and human connection. Showing affection to boys doesn't weaken them. It doesn't weaken them. It equipping them with the emotional intelligence. And we always hear this term being thrown around, emotional intelligence, with young men, and they don't have emotional intelligence because they're not raised to have emotional intelligence, at least in these spaces that myself and Ashok Kwasi would be experiencing as well too. People throw that around quite often, but it does equip these boys who will eventually become young men and then men with emotional intelligence for it to be able to thrive in this complex world that we live in. This world is very complex, right? Living with other persons. So as a society in general, we must normalize giving hugs, tenderness, emotional care as essential and not an optional thing. It is not an optional thing in raising our boys because it is so important. It is very, very important to show this physical affection as well. So I just want to close with a call to action. So you make sure and you hug your son, your nephew, your mentee, all of these type of persons that you work with. So I work with a lot of younger guys and everything. So I make sure I take pictures with them, give them a hug and things, say, bro, what's up? Everything good? Make sure that they feel appreciated, that they feel welcomed by you, right? Not just when they're sad, but to celebrate as well. So, you're showing all the elements of emotion. So you're telling them that, boys don't necessarily, you don't have to earn love. You're telling them you don't have to earn love. You're generally loved because you exist. You exist as a boy in Trinidad and Tobago or on the globe as an entire space. So we need to stop punishing boys for needing this connection. Like if usually we see sometimes a boy might be crying, a single parent mother might be seeing her son crying, and she would tell him, "Stop crying. He's not a man. He's not a woman. You need to act like a man." Telling her own little boy that. We've seen that happening. I have seen it happening. Right. So we need to stop that. So let me start building up with one thing, and that one thing is love. Love and also affection. So yeah, that ends my discussion. So thank you all so much for that. Hope it was impactful.
Richie, thank you. Your enthusiasm is infectious, that's for sure, and your experience is hugely valuable. Thank you so much. You mentioned a couple of things, and I just have to say them before I turn it back over to Ola. And that is, you speak of rehabilitation. Uh, we're rehabilitating ourselves, our sons. We're rehabilitating a society, and actually, most all cultures are lacking this sense of fatherly love, the embrace, the positive nature that has, not just for the family, but really for the society that comes on. Doreen, please mute. Thank you. So, and then the last thing too, you said often we look at a boy and say, act like a man. Yet we have not modeled what a man is all about. And so they go into the, okay, what's my cultural entrainment? What do I got in my storage container? And it usually is old stories, old masculinity. And so we are rehabilitating our cultures. It's not going to be overnight, but when that one person gets it and hugs, that world has changed for them, and they'll never go back. So thank you for the great work that you do, and that you and Quasi work together. Uh, Fantastic. I look forward to great things from you. Thank you. Stick around. Ola, you have some things to share with us for just a moment, right? Unmute yourself. We don't hear you. Ola, unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can. Yes. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And thank you, everyone. And I want to thank you for your presentations. I have learned so much from the speakers today, right from the very beginning to uh, Richie, when he said something that struck my mind, says that boys who are showed love become men who showed love. Thank you, Richie, for that. That was powerful. It touches my heart. And I want to quickly bring us to this Embrace the Bond Global Hub for Boys. And looking at the statistics that we have here, this is the father and son disconnection dynamic, pandemic. When I started this, one of the things that first came to my mind is, what if a simple hug would transform the trajectory of a boy's life? And when you look at the statistics from here, globally, boys are in crisis according to 2023 World Health Organization report, meaning suicide is now the second largest leading cause of death for males aged 10 to 24, with emotional disconnection being a key risk factor. But research from Harvard Center on the developing child confirms that paternal warmth is the single strongest predictor of resilience, meaning this could reduce depression rate by 40% and aggression by 60%. So the Global Hug for Boys campaign bridges this gap by celebrating and redefining father and son's bonds across culture, borders, and generations. So when we look at the disconnection pandemic, you can see from the statistic here, we have 68% of boys in the US report physical affection from their fathers declines by age 12. And all of the speakers have really gone into this. In the UK, 1 in 3 fathers admit to never say I love you. I remember when our first speaker said about affirmation coming with the hug. We accomplish it with the hug. This is what we want to achieve. Then you look at also UNICEF report that 56% of boys in surveyed countries report really never hearing I love you from their fathers. This is what our boys are yearning for, our sons are yearning for. They want to hear from us as fathers that we love them. They want to hear that we are proud of them. And this is the power of a hug. So we also have the science of consequences. Boys without paternal affection are 3 times more likely to develop ADHD symptoms, which is a Journal of Family Psychology in 2021. And Harvard Grant study said proves men who reported warm father relationship earned 20% higher incomes and had lower rates of divorce. Now, the ripple effect. Disconnected boys become men struggling with intimacy, depression, and societal violence. But the inverse also is true. Strong father-son bonds create healthier families, communities, and economics. This is our mission. The Global Hub for Boys want to normalize emotional connection between fathers and sons worldwide through advocacy, education, and cultural storytelling. Now, hug across cultures. So that's our theme for the year, and we've explored that today. We want to thank you. Then the hug effect. Why does this work? Evidence-based intervention. A 2024 meta-analysis in pediatrics shows 10 seconds of daily hugging boosts oxytocin, which we have referred to here. So we did that last year in Nigeria, and we saw the impact of the few boys whose father hug regularly. And we also look at other cultures, like in New Zealand, the Maori people. This gives us, even in Brazil, we can see how the wisdom meets with science. Then our goal from tomorrow is to begin a global hugathon. The goal is to help us collect 1 million hugs in 2025, and let's dare it in 2026 to get 100 million hugs from father and sons across the globe. So this is going to be like a 24-hour global event where participants will pledge. I think Ross will later talk about that, and in his conclusion, he will bring that into case. So our goal now is to help scale this to 15 new countries by 2026. And with your support, with your funding, we can get there. The final thought is this. The World Health Organization calls male loneliness a silent epidemic. But we have the antidote: culturally rooted, scientifically validated connection. Imagine a world where every boy grows up knowing that he is loved, like Rishi said. He's going to be a man who gives love, not just by his family, but by the global community that champions his wholeness. With your support, we can turn the tides. One embrace, one boy, one father, one future at a time. Thank you, and thank you again.
Thank you, Ola. We appreciate all of the work, the tremendous organization that has grown into this, the visuals that you and your partner Matthew has put together. It's tremendous. Now I would like to have, let's see, Mike, you're on, and Mr. Seko, Mr. Kujo, and Mr. Bansraj, you're all on. If you would put your cameras back on and unmute yourselves. If we could have all the speakers unmute yourselves and come back on camera. If not, Mike and I are going to have a great conversation. So, okay. Mrs. Seko, unmute yourself. Richie, please.
So,
yeah, gentlemen, excellent. Thank you. Please unmute yourselves.
Right, we're good.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, guys. Quasi, you're still muted.
Hi.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Listen, there's one other aspect that I want to just drop in here. And because we've gone through some scientific studies from Harvard and from major organizations around the world that confirm that there's a positive response to hugging, as it is in the boy's future life, which is then, of course, the life of the neighborhood, the family, the society. But let me interject one other thing. As long as we're dealing with science, even physics and quantum physics, which is maybe beyond a lot of us, but there is a simple phrase that affects us all. You've felt it, but we've never verbalized it. And that is this: everyone and everything is a vibrational field. We carry this energy with us, and it's a reality whether we want it or not. You have come up to people and you've felt instantly there's some grief, there's some sorrow with this person, or you've come into rooms that seem to have an energy about it, a type of spirit. Well, if I, as a father, am carrying around the negative, static within my field of energy, anybody I bring into that energy is going to feel it by resonance. It's a simple thing. When there's thunder, my windows rattle. When there's an earthquake, everything rattles. By resonance, when you get close to something that is unpleasant, you feel it and you contract and you pull back. If it's positive, like love, like safe acceptance, I know who you are, I love you. And if that is part of your field, the person feels it. So, key to a hug is also this one-to-one exchange of energetic resonance. I don't think that's too far out of left field. As a matter of fact, Taoist cultures have been teaching that for the last 5,000 years plus. So uh, I, I would like to have any of you in any order. There's no order here. This is now a free, open conversation. If you would
Yes.
respond to either maybe something I may have said, but all of you have said amazing things. Were you tweaked? Was there something that you said or maybe you forgot to say that you wanted to? Now's your chance. Let's respond to each other's sharing. And Richie, when you're available, you are still muted. So, all right. Anybody?
And sir, you may give people in the audience too. Anyone in the audience who want to make contributions, please, you can just raise your virtual hands, and we'll allow you to make a very good contribution to this conversation. Thank you for being on the call once again.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I think, if I may just start, Russ, is the energy you give out is the energy that you receive. And for us as men, one of the things that we have to do is we have to intentionally ensure that we don't have negative energy within us. And negative energy comes in many forms or is manufactured in many in certain realities. Number one is the anger that we have inside, you know, the hatred that we have, you know, the unforgiveness, the low esteem, the inability to fit in, the pressure that we have in from society, our inability to provide as men, you know, and lack of safe spaces for us men to be able to express our feelings and our emotions. Yeah, because an injured man is a dangerous man. You know, an injured man is not the type of person who would come with solutions. No, an injured person most likely will create more problems. So I think men, we have to find it within ourselves to heal, look at ourselves, excuse me, look internally on who we are and the shortcomings that we have, and find ways and means of addressing them. And I'll give that practically on myself. You know, as an example, is there were times when I would get in the house and my kids would they were in the sitting room and they would just disappear. Apart from my son, who was still very young then. And one day, you know, I just sat and asked myself, you know, really, what am I doing? What am I doing? Because I was trying to raise my kids the way I was raised. And the world that we live in, it ain't gonna work. It ain't gonna work. But most importantly, as parents, is we must learn to listen. Because listening, for now, for me, is an art. That you listen not to answer back, but you listen to understand. You listen to understand. And all the young, because I have been to school missions, you know, just like one of our other colleagues said, I have been to boys' schools, I have been to girls' schools, I have been to places where, you know, Gen Zs are employed, and I've also in spaces where men, you know, men are employed. And one of the things that comes out very clearly is no one listens to me, or my parents just don't like me. There's a lot of animosity at home. Yeah. Just listening, just listening. And when you listen, after listening, and you give a hug and tell them, give whoever it is a hug, a man especially, because men, we don't hug one another, and tell him, you know what, I know what you're going through, I understand, and I am with you. That works magic. That works magic for a man, because those are things that we never discuss as men. And finally is having gone through a lot of challenges in the last 4 years, I actually wrote a book. And I think, let me see if I can get a copy of the book and show it to you. Yeah, here it is. It's called The Gen Z Parent. It just talks from confusion to connection. And one of the things that I talk about in the book is the whole issue of family unity. Family unity, being there for one another, you know, having time for one another, spending time with one another, and listening to one another. Thank you very much. This book is available on Amazon if you want it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Seko. It's tremendously valuable things you're saying, and that is to literally, we need to take the time to go in and search our own souls to see where that negativity might be. We sometimes find it easier to say, I accept you, I understand you, I realize, and that can do wonders, exactly as you say. I question the other three gentlemen.
Sure.
Have you found this to be true, that you can do it outwardly, but you as individuals, how often do you go in and forgive yourself and say,
So
I'm carrying some baggage? Go ahead, Kwasi.
yeah, so what I want to jump in and say and touch on, I think it came out as an underlying theme by all the speakers, is that this has to be an intentional thing. And because affection isn't instinct. I believe that something it's learned, it's practiced, and it's mirrored. And it comes down to overall parenting. It's just like with parenting. Parenting is a skill. And many times we learn to be parents from, you know, the examples that we would have had or we didn't have. And therefore, that's why we end up with some of the little gaps in terms of how we raise children, how we show affection, how we discipline. But, you know, in a world where information is very accessible, I think it's an intentional act that as men, we, you know, retool. Because I have a motto, and I always say sometimes you need to retool, rebuild, repeat. And that could span across your professional sphere, your personal sphere, where you recognize and you have that introspection, where you look into you. And sometimes that's the biggest or the hardest person to challenge is yourself in terms of your
I
beliefs
did put
and
my
what
life
you
on
would have
LinkedIn.
learned. Yeah, the
The Goose
biggest.
in the Morning.
If you could just mute someone who's unmuted and just speaking, if you
No,
could just
not
unmute.
the
Just came on
cranberry
an
juice.
iPhone.
There was something there.
Whoever just came on, please mute.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you know it, you have to be very intentional. And I'm saying that because if you look across cultures and you know, I recall doing some work in Complexo de Maré in Brazil with in a favela actually. And a lot of these similar experiences came up with men in terms of how do we show affection, particularly to our sons. You found it was easier for them to hug their daughters. Or with the boys, and you know, Murray has a lot of challenges when it comes to crime and violence. So you had that, I want to say, commonality where violence and aggression was the norm. So hugging was seen as a feminine trait in terms of to hug your son. I would have seen similar, you know, experiences during a workshop in the juvenile holding center in Guyana, where the boys, you know, when they expressed how they grew up, they didn't experience, you know, being shown open affection. So it's a case where me personally, as a parent myself, and if I could tell you the date happened and the time, I'd be dishonest. But I would say that over time, it called for me being intentional and challenging some of my beliefs, how I behave, and finding persons who I felt could guide me to become a better father, a better man. Finding spaces where I could share that, I'm having a challenge. How do I push back against me? Because as I said, the biggest block or the stumbling block is your perception of what is acceptable and unacceptable. And I think that's why it's really important for men on this call and even for women who might be in this space here. Because women raise sons. And somebody gave the statistics, there are a lot of single parent headed households and headed by females. And sometimes women themselves reinforce some of these negative behaviors with their sons. And that's how it continues. But my thing is being intentional, and really reaching that place where you could say, there's something I need to work on. And I always go back to, Gary Chapman wrote the book years ago, The Five Love Languages. And that physical touch is one. And the last speaker just said it. Physical touch doesn't only mean you probably pat your son on his shoulder or you rub his head, but you give him a hug and you look him in the eye and say, I love you, I'm proud of you, and have that connection. And you spoke about that, Russ, in terms of the research behind connecting with persons, that physical touch. Because just like all the other love languages, it calls for undivided attention. When we speak about quality time doesn't mean that you're sitting down with your son. He's probably watching the favorite show that he thinks is, both of your favorite show, but you're on your phone texting the office or probably talking about the latest score in a basketball game. It means being involved. And the same thing with hugs. Hugs mean probably, and it's going to be uncomfortable for some men who haven't done it, to actually stop and look at your son in his eye and utter the words, I love you. Even uttering the words, I love you, may come out in a colloquial way based on your culture. You might say, you're real proud, But just to say it, to verbalize it, I say take the step. It's about being intentional. There's no negative consequence to challenging you and pushing beyond your discomfort to that place of growth that not only yourself need, but your son would need as well.
Thank you, Quasi. Incredibly insightful, incredibly important. Mike, I've known you for now several years, and you're like the quintessential dad for me. You're younger than I am, but I see in you qualities that I so admire. And I've seen photos of you engaging with your kids. And if anybody is a hugger, it's Mike Nisbett. So would you please share your response to what you've heard, particularly from these speakers, but from your experience? What are the reservations that you've had to deal with?
So I love the comments that are being made and the insights. It's been a great conversation. And I love what Nixon said. We have to deal with our issues, right? Our inside demons, our struggles in order to be there for others. And I don't think there's a more effective way than to do that is in community. And we need to create safe places so that we can realize we're not alone. I belong to two men's group, one meet on Tuesday, one on Thursday, where we get online and brothers say like, wow, it's amazing. I'm not alone in this struggle. I thought I was weird. I'm glad I hear another brother be transparent, be vulnerable. And when they hear another man being vulnerable, I think someone was talking about that, come back to report, the results of how it was because I gave a hug. Bell Hooks has a quote, rarely, if ever, are any of us healed in isolation. Healing is an act of community. And, I think that's so important that we continue to create safe places where men can go and learn how to be vulnerable, learn how to be affectionate. Yeah, my dad wasn't a hugger, didn't say I love you. He showed it, but I was glad that when I realized when I start raising my kids that in the world that they're living in, if ever before, they need to hear it. They need to get the emotional touch. And I'm blessed to do that with my son and daughter now with my grandkids. Yeah, so we need to create safe place. Also, I just want to also throw in there a challenge that we have, like Kwanzi was saying, we have to be intentional. We also have the challenge because of the alternate lifestyle, right? I'm not knocking it, but it's not, you hear the slang, don't be gay, right? It's like that, which has caused men, well, I can't touch you, right? And so that's what we're going up against also. And so that's another obstacle that we have to overcome. So we have old traditions and now we have the new world or something like that. And it has nothing to do with that. It's a healthy thing to love. It's a healthy thing to say, I love you, because we need it. We're human. So I just want to just put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. So true. I'd like to take a moment and ask James and John, uh, James Samarad and John Hamill. You've been with us, and I have a sense that you might have something to contribute. I would love to have you unmute and maybe come online and let us share in your expertise, your knowledge, just as being a man, being whatever it is that drew you to this conversation. If you feel comfortable with that, fine. You're more than welcome. So, and Richie, any closing words?
Yeah, so I think everyone spoke about everything that I needed to speak about as well. They touch on every single topic. As I say, we are men in this space here, and if there are any women in the chat as well, we know we are the ones that understand the importance of the hug, right? And the importance of showing love. Now we need to get this message out there. So this is one phase. This is one phase where we have in this here. So I agree, really grateful for Ola for having this and you all for joining this. But we need to start to extend it further out there so we can get these women, we can get youth, we can get everybody to see that how this is something that is important and very interesting as well. Because right now we have young men sitting down, boys sitting down home, thinking that how it's okay to not be hugged by their father. Thinking that is not okay. I mean, thinking that it is okay. And it is not okay to get a hug from them. Because of the same thing of being homosexual, this homosexual label, that we have on showing physical affection. But it shows that men being this quote unquote stoic, the labeled word, I have a new trend with men and boys being nonchalant. The Gen Zs and they being very nonchalant. So they're not showing any emotion with anything. And that has been a trend on TikTok and Instagram Reels and all these kind of things. But I want to also point out something is that we would have our own experience growing up as men, right? With our fathers. Now we are the ones to understand what they might have done was the wrong way of doing things. Not showing hugs, not showing affection through hugs, not showing any form of affection, even saying, "Oh, son, I'm real proud of you." Not even that, right? So all of these things, we see it. And I believe that young men now, when they see it, they don't want to follow that same suit. So they do not want to follow suit. They see it and they see it as a wrong thing because Gen Zs right now realizing that, and we have known this for a long time, that parents are not always perfect and they are not always right. They are humans too. It have no book to be in a parent. Some people try to write books, but that only specific to certain categories, certain contexts. But there is no book to be in the perfect parent. It all depends on your culture, where you're raised, where you're from, your location. All of these intersectionalities is the key word that develop you into a person, and it's how it is that you parent and or not parent.
Richie, if
So
I could jump in here,
yeah, because
you're exactly right, and it brings me back to what Ola has been saying for years. I mean, as long as I've known him, he said the problem with our societies and our family is that no one teaches a boy how to become a man, and that's to me that's such a basic starting point that we need to actually teach a boy child what it is to be a man by being a man. So
Yeah.
we need to also change our way of thinking, way of operating. We need to discharge those negative energies from our field so we don't pass them on to our boys or our girls or anywhere else in the society.
The boy
For
is
all
very
the
vulnerable.
Yeah,
Very
for
vulnerable
all
and
the work
vulnerable.
that all of you are doing in the field, thank you so very much. Uh, as we're near the end now, and it is our desire to wrap up very quickly, I
Yeah.
want to say, so that it is on tape also, that this is just day one of something that has been scheduled for 2 days, and tomorrow it's all of the communications that have come from Ola have links on them to here's where we want you to comment, share what happened when you tried, what was the response of the child, and let's log in our first 1 million hugs. So, however it is that you came across this I'll say movement, but this Zoom broadcast and the hugs across the world, the question is, can you go back there, find the links, and tomorrow register, state your intentions, and share your progress? Because we have only one way to go, and that's up. That is for
Yeah.
absolutely sure. So
Good work.
I'm going to
Thank you,
turn it
Ross.
over
Thank
to
you.
I'm going to turn it over to Ola. Thank you, gentlemen. I
Thank,
look forward to meeting you and giving
thank
you
you.
a hug
Thank you.
out of
Thank,
appreciation. So thanks
thank
so
you.
much,
Thank you
guys.
so much.
Okay, Ola, it's all
I
yours.
want to let us know that at the beginning of this meeting, we had a little glitches, and that affected the number of participants that were initially on the call. Like I said, this is just the beginning. And oh, see, my partner is here. You know, Faith, good to have you in. I know you've listened very well. This one lady, when I conceived this idea a year ago, we had a mental intercourse on how to bring this baby into into the world. And you know, we brainstormed for like a week or two, put things together. She was all over social media last year promoting this event. And I believe in the progressive realization of this movement that everybody on this call, may I appeal to you to be part of the advisory board of the Global Hug for Boys campaign. And what that means is that being on this advisory board, we have regular meetings, maybe a monthly call or a quarterly call with a goal in mind where we will ensure that this message gets to 50 countries by this time next year. But between now and next year, all we are requesting is that everyone should encourage men in their lives or men you know to hug their sons and share their videos or photos of hug online beginning from tomorrow. It's just beginning from tomorrow. What we also think about, I don't know what next thing we'll think about this. And what do you think as well, Kwasi and Rishi and Ross? We want to pick a day in the week where the Global Hub for Boys gives a reminder of call to action because it's the ultimate goal for the Global Hub Kogoi campaign is to ensure that this become a ritual, this become a norms in homes, in communities, and in the society at large. So we want to dedicate a day in the week where we post is about Global Hub for Boys and with different uh, images we receive from tomorrow. So I want to especially thank you, and I want your thought on this, please. Just for the next 6 minutes, we'll be ready to go. James and John, we hope to hear from you, but you've been part of this conversation, and we love you so much. And I'll be reaching out to everyone who have missed out on this call today. So, what do you think about these ideas or these suggestions? maybe we take just 1.5 minutes each, and we'll close for today.
I'll be happy to respond, and that is that so often we've been at remarkable meetings that never have a follow-up, and things tend to then die on the vine. This is so important that even those of us who are the busiest of all, we will manage to find the time to support this. I know, because it's vital to ourselves personally as well as our professional lives. So, Ola, you still are you're the keel, the front of the boat that's leading the way, and each in our own countries and our own ways and responsibilities. We simply say thank you to you, but we also take on that mantle ourselves for what it is we are charged personally to do. So thank you, Ola. Please go ahead and close off, and I'll see
Yes,
you all online somewhere soon.
yes. We received from John Hamel saying Sunday is a great day of the week. And I've also created a hug across cultures, a guide to father-son bonding. Is I'll be sending her out with a little support from each and every one to ensure that we continue to drive resources to build this campaign. I can't thank you more. I really appreciate the value you brought into the conversation today, the importance of your time, the sharing of your uh, deep wisdom, knowledge, and experience you brought into the conversation. I want to say I'm hugging everybody as much as I can. This is my virtual hug to you. I'm giving you all of my hug from here. It begins from here. And I hope you guys are receiving it. And I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so very much. Faith, you have to close this conversation for us. Thank you.
Thank you,
Hello,
everyone,
everyone.
for attending. Faith, please share.
Thank you so much, Fox. How are you? And I'm around, I'm in America, so let's catch up. Hi, Seko, good to see you, and wonderful to listen to Richie and Kwasi. This has been a wonderful, wonderful session for me. I keep learning from fathers, and even Nisbett, who's left. I keep learning from fathers. I keep learning from men. So thank you so much. I am really encouraged that this is gaining momentum. Ola, I always say that when a man wants to conceive a child, he needs to look for a woman. So even mental conception, sometimes you need to look for women for things to flow. And I truly appreciate, and I am so honored that we've walked this journey. We have found this, and I'm here to support men and boys. So this is Faith for them that do not know me. I am the Men and Boys Ambassador. I come from Kenya, but right now I'm in the United States. Of course, fueling the fire on men and boys right here in Seattle. And what I would want to do is for us to have a big momentum and a big movement of men and boys. So that is what brings me here. I'll be reaching out to you folks, and Ola will be talking more about maybe a conference in November around male engagement and inclusion. At the end of the day, if we don't have policies in the world, we'll still keep doing our silos. And for us, for the women movement became, because they stopped doing silos and they came together. So it's a time for us to come together and do what we have to do. I truly appreciate each and every one of you for the good work that you're doing. I know that we have posterity for the world because of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Faith. So,
Thank you, Faith.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Ola, I keep passing it back to you. You are our standard keeper. So, with great thanks, it was an honor for me to be here to learn from all of you, men and women. So, thank you so very much. Ola, please.
Yes, I'm happy to have all of you, and I look forward to more engaging conversations. And like I said, I'll be reaching out to you from tomorrow, and be the voice, be the lead campaign in your countries, Until we meet again, salam, namaste, be blessed. Thank you.
Hey, have a
Thank
good one,
you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Again, everyone.
Bye.
Yeah, take care.
Appreciate you all.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.